One single unsent letter brought down a billionaire's carefully crafted philanthropic shield.
Yeah, and it really exposed an extortion machine operating at the very highest levels of global power.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We're unpacking a story that completely rewrites how we understand leverage, privacy, and, well, philanthropy in general.
It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's April 2026 right now, and the ground has just completely shifted beneath one of the world's most powerful institutions.
Exactly. Because behind the closed doors of his own foundation this past February, Bill Gates delivered an apology that, frankly, nobody saw coming.
Right. He admitted to his staff that he had 2 extramarital affairs with Russian women years ago.
And he wasn't just, getting ahead of a tabloid rumor.
No, not at all. He was responding to a massive dump of newly unsealed federal documents from the Justice Department.
Those documents prove that the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein knew all about these affairs. He didn't just know about them, he actively weaponized them to blackmail Gates.
Yeah, and the fallout has been so intense that Gates is now actually scheduled to sit down and testify before a closed-door House Oversight Committee.
Right, on June 10th, 2026, which is just huge.
It is. We are looking at a staggering 3 million pages of evidence newly released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. You'll hear it called the EFTA.
3 million pages. That's a mountain of data.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to pull apart the anatomy of this extortion ring. We really need to look at how it targeted immense wealth and why a ghost from the past is, actively paralyzing global health operations today.
Well, the best way to understand Epstein's operation is to think of it like a malicious computer virus.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, imagine you accidentally download a piece of malware. It doesn't crash your computer right away, right? It just sits quietly in the background.
Violently.
Exactly. Silently log in your every keystroke, grabbing your passwords, archiving your private messages for years. You just go about your life completely unaware. Then, one day, right when you are about to close the biggest deal of your career, it locks you out of your own system and flashes a ransom demand on the screen.
That captures the methodology perfectly, honestly. He was running a sprawling intelligence gathering operation, but he disguised the whole thing as high society networking and philanthropy.
Because leverage isn't just knowing a secret, it's engineering the perfect trap.
Exactly.
So to understand why Bill Gates is facing Congress, we have to look at the exact weapon Epstein built to corner him. Let's rewind to 2013.
Right. So in 2013, Gates and Epstein were working on a proposed multi-billion-dollar charitable fund involving J.P. Morgan.
And for Epstein, that deal was literally about survival.
It was. I mean, he had a 2008 sex crime conviction hanging over his head. He was completely radioactive to mainstream banks and institutions.
Nobody wanted to touch him.
Nobody. So he desperately needed this massive, highly visible philanthropic partnership to launder his reputation. Anchoring a global fund with Bill Gates is, well, it's the ultimate reputational bleach.
Right, because if Gates trusts him, the financial world basically has to let him back in the door.
Exactly. But the deal collapsed. Gates walked away.
And that is when Epstein decided to draft what analysts are now calling the Boris resignation draft.
Yeah.
This is an incredibly dark piece of leverage. I mean, Epstein typed out this letter himself, but he wrote it from the perspective of Boris Nikolic.
Who was Gates' chief science advisor.
Right, a core member of his inner circle.
So he essentially forged a whistleblower manifesto.
Yeah, and the document threatened to publicly expose Gates' affairs with, quote, Russian girls.
Which is bad enough.
But then it escalated to something much more dangerous. The letter claimed Epstein had procured specific medicine to treat a sexually transmitted disease that Gates had contracted. And then came the nuclear option. The draft alleged that Gates planned to secretly dose his then-wife, Melinda French Gates, with this medication.
You see, crossing the line from a private infidelity into an allegation of surreptitiously medicating a spouse that completely changes the threat level. That moves from personal embarrassment to a potential legal catastrophe. It's designed to induce absolute panic.
But wait, let me push back on this a bit.
Sure.
If we know Epstein wrote this in 2013 and he never actually hit send on the email, how do we know it wasn't just him venting in a draft folder? I mean, an unsent document isn't really a weapon, is it?
Well, that is where you see the true manipulation of the offline strategy. If you look at the metadata in the release, the document was saved. It was not sent.
Right.
He kept it in a draft format so he could print it out, walk into a room, and physically slide it across a desk during a face-to-face meeting.
Oh, wow. So he holds it back so he can cast himself as the savior.
He flips the script completely.
Yeah.
He could sit down and say, look at what your trusted advisor Boris is threatening to leak to the press because he's so angry about this fund falling apart.
Oh, I see.
But don't worry, I intercepted this. I stopped him. He simulates a massive betrayal from inside Gates' own house and then positions himself as the only bodyguard capable of containing the blast.
That is wild. He invents the fire, blames someone in the inner circle for holding the match, and then demands a reward for putting it out.
Exactly. And the implicit threat is that he will only keep protecting Gates from these massive liabilities if Gates finalizes their business deal.
But written threats can sometimes be dismissed as hearsay, right? Or just the ramblings of a bitter former associate.
Right, which a master manipulator knows.
Yeah.
A threat needs hard receipts to be truly effective. He had to prove he was inside the private life.
Which means we need to look at how he manufactured that proof. And the files show us he was building a paper trail years in advance.
Yes, back in 2010.
Right. In 2010, Gates met Mila Antonova. She was a Russian competitive bridge player. Epstein eventually steps into the picture and actually pays for her to attend a software coding school.
He turns a private vulnerability into an undeniable business transaction.
Yeah.
He deliberately inserts himself into the financial logistics of the relationship. Generosity is, often just a down payment on future leverage.
And he waited years to cash that in. I mean, 4 years after the JP Morgan deal falls apart, we're in 2017 now, Epstein suddenly emails Gates an invoice.
Out of nowhere.
Completely out of nowhere. He asks to be reimbursed for Antonova's coding school tuition.
Think about the scale of his network here. The newly released documents reveal Epstein was logging over 600 flying hours a year on his private planes.
600 flying hours? Commercial airline pilots log those kinds of hours?
Exactly. But instead of handing out peanuts, he is crisscrossing the globe collecting blackmail material.
Wow!
He was running an active surveillance network. Sending a tuition invoice in 2017 was not about recouping a few $1,000s from a billionaire.
It's like a hacker making a tiny $2 test charge on a stolen credit card.
Right.
They don't care about the $2. They just want to verify that the account is still active, still vulnerable, and that you are still watching the balance.
That perfectly describes the mechanism. It was a ping to the system. By 2017, Epstein was facing intense and mounting legal pressure from multiple directions. He needed to test the strength of his leverage.
Right, because if Gates pays that invoice, he creates a brand new, documented financial link acknowledging the affair.
And Epstein's central role in facilitating it.
Yeah.
And even if Gates ignores the invoice, the message is still delivered loud and clear. I still have the receipts, and I am not going away.
Well, Gates's representatives have stated clearly that he refused to pay that invoice. They confirmed that Epstein tried to leverage a past relationship, but no money ever changed hands for that tuition reimbursement.
The refusal is important, but the attempt itself is what exposes the machinery. Epstein archived a mundane financial transaction and waited 7 years to activate it as a weapon.
And when you take a threat like that and move it from a secret draft folder into the public domain, the blast radius is massive.
Oh, absolutely.
These historical documents aren't just tabloid fodder. They're actively paralyzing one of the largest philanthropic organizations on the planet right now.
The operational damage is immediate when leverage is exposed like this.
Let's look at the real-time fallout in February 2026. On February 19, Gates was scheduled to deliver a massive, highly anticipated keynote address at an artificial intelligence summit in India.
Right.
The foundation does critical, life-saving work in that region. But because the EFTA documents had just dropped, making the affairs and the blackmail public, he abruptly canceled his appearance.
He simply couldn't safely step to the podium.
No.
If he takes questions from the international press, nobody's going to ask him about the future of artificial intelligence.
Obviously not.
Every single microphone is going to demand answers about the Boris letter, the Russian women, and the medical allegations. The philanthropic mission just completely stalls.
And that reality is what forced Gates to issue the internal apology to his foundation staff later that month.
Right.
He admits to the affairs. But if you read his statement, you can see he's building a very strict, carefully engineered legal firewall.
Very strict.
He stated on the record, quote, "I did nothing illicit. I saw nothing illicit."
It is a highly calibrated crisis response. He admits to the consensual affairs to bleed off the immediate public pressure.
Right.
But the phrasing deliberately distances his personal infidelity from Epstein's broader criminal sex trafficking and abuse network.
And his representatives have also pushed back incredibly hard against the medical claims buried in the Boris letter.
Yes, they have.
They call the allegations about the STD and the plot to secretly medicate his wife absolutely absurd and completely false.
Right.
Their argument is that these documents simply highlight Epstein's desperation, showing a toxic man trying to defame Gates after their business relationship went sour.
And we really must make that crucial distinction when analyzing intelligence files. The documents prove, without a doubt, that Epstein constructed and delivered the threat.
Okay.
But they do not automatically prove that the underlying medical claims he invented for that threat were true.
Fair point. The problem for Gates, though, is that a key voice refused to back up his defense.
Yeah, this was huge.
On February 3, 2026, Melinda French Gates sat down for an in-depth interview with NPR. She was asked about the newly released files, and she did not run defense for her ex-husband.
She systematically removed the institutional shield.
She acknowledged that the documents brought back painful times in her marriage. But when the interviewer pressed her on the specific details, including those medical allegations, she explicitly said that those questions are for her ex-husband to answer, not her.
By refusing to issue a flat denial on his behalf, she leaves that specific, highly damaging liability hanging right there on the public ledger.
Yeah.
Institutional cover relies on a unified front. She stepped out of the way and forced Bill Gates to carry the entire burden of answering for those absurdly dark claims alone.
It really shows you what Epstein's actual business model was. He wasn't a traditional financial advisor.
Not at all.
His ultimate product was financial opacity and leverage. Philanthropy was just his acquisition strategy. Blackmail was his retention protocol.
Well said.
And that retention protocol is now causing an institutional catastrophe.
And Gates is far from the only powerful figure caught in the blast radius of this release. The congressional reckoning we are seeing right now is just unprecedented.
Yeah, the Department of Justice submitted this massive report to Congress in February 2026 under the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
Right, the EFTA.
They unsealed 9 distinct categories of records. We're talking about flight logs, immunity deals, internal DOJ emails showing exactly how prosecutors made their charging decisions over the years.
The scope is massive, but the standard the DOJ applied to this release is what makes it so historic.
Yeah.
They explicitly stated they did not withhold any records simply because they caused embarrassment or political sensitivity.
They drew a very hard line. No redactions for reputational harm. The only black ink you see in these 3 million pages is strictly for victim privacy, active ongoing investigations, and materials depicting child abuse.
Which means everything else, the entire network of enablers, is out in the open. The protective seal that guarded this network for decades is entirely gone.
And because of that transparency, U.S. lawmakers recently unredacted 6 new high-profile names in these files.
Oh, yeah.
That includes Leslie Wexner, the billionaire founder of Victoria's Secret, whose deep financial ties to Epstein have long been scrutinized. We're also seeing heavy pressure on current Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
Yeah, because the files place Lutnick on Epstein's private island in 2012.
And that timeline is key, because 2012 is years after Epstein's initial sex crime conviction.
Exactly.
Now, the White House has publicly stood by Lutnick, calling him a very important member of the team, but the public pressure is mounting across the board. The system is demanding answers.
It really is.
Which brings us to the main event. On June 10th, 2026, Bill Gates will sit down for a transcribed in-person interview with the House Oversight Committee.
And importantly, that will happen behind closed doors.
Right. So if the DOJ has already opened the floodgates and handed the public 3 million pages of unredacted documents, what does this Oversight Committee actually hope to achieve by putting Gates in a private room? What is left to uncover?
Well, documents tell you what happened, right? But Congress is trying to map the machine.
Map the machine?
Yeah, they need the human context to understand how the leverage was actually applied in real time. They are investigating how a convicted sex offender managed to stay plugged into the highest levels of global power, tech, and philanthropy.
So they want the instruction manual for the extortion ring.
Exactly. They're looking at how the Justice Department handled these incredibly sensitive records in the past and how the legal and financial systems essentially allowed Epstein's operation to function in plain sight.
Okay.
Gates is a primary witness to the mechanics of that operation. His testimony helps them understand the exact anatomy of the trap.
Think about your own digital footprint for a second. Why should you care about a billionaire's bad decisions from over a decade ago?
It's a good question.
It can feel like an episode of a television show that has nothing to do with everyday life. But we live in a digital age where data is the ultimate form of power. Every single time you use a credit card, send an email, or check into a location, you leave a breadcrumb.
Right. And if the wealthiest, most legally protected people in the world can be completely cornered by the data collected on their private lives, it highlights a profound vulnerability that exists at every single level of our society.
Power in the modern world is not just about who has the most money, it's about who controls the secrets.
Who has access to the draft folder.
Exactly. This story is the absolute extreme example of how hidden leverage and compromised privacy can paralyze even the most influential global institutions.
The mechanics of extortion have just been modernized and scaled.
Which leaves us with the lingering, pretty chilling thought to mull over. The Justice Department just released 3 million pages of Epstein's physical and digital files.
Yeah.
But Epstein operated in the shadows for decades. He wired his properties with hidden cameras. He ran an intelligence gathering operation that was unbelievably meticulous and vast. I mean, he flew 600 hours a year building this web.
The amount of data he amassed over a lifetime is almost incalculable.
So if his surveillance was truly that comprehensive, who might possess the unreleased, hidden backups of that data today?
Oh, wow.
The files we see might just be the ones he left behind. How might that invisible, unreleased leverage be quietly shaping global decisions, business deals, and political movements right now, without us ever knowing?
That is the invisible hand that should keep everyone awake at night. Because the machine might still be running.
Until next time, keep digging.